ain't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video, we are going to be talking about Rise of the Powers of 10 number 3, written by Kieran Gillen, with art by R.B. Silva, and color by David Curiel. Xavier has gone back in time using the technology that Sinister Cypher has put together inside of No Place X alongside Ascani's chrono-skimming abilities. He is now able to return to the moment just before Moira's X gene activates in her 10th life. And we know that he's going back to unalive her. But the question is, will he? He's got the Glock 9 Millie with the red dot, and he's prepared to send Moira not to the gulag, but to the "you died" screen. Maybe not even the "you died" screen, just Alt F4 back to the desktop, uninstalled with the Steam refund. At this point in time, this is a Moira who has no knowledge of the future before her in her 10th life. She's still legit hopeful getting Magneto and Xavier working together will succeed where all other efforts have failed. This lends a lot of credence to the fact that Moira was all in on mutant kind, at least up to a point. That point being Inferno and 10 Deaths of Wolverine. And as we know, Moira just simply doesn't want to die. It's even made more clear just in the sense that Moira muses in her inner monologues about how she doesn't take chances. Even as a kid, she would not want to play on swings and on jungle gyms and do things that could potentially hurt her, because if she did somehow get hurt in a way that could lead to her death before her X gene activates, she would die permanently. And she doesn't want that. So this is how, when she was turned human in the events of Inferno by Mystique and Destiny, she turned over to Orchis because that benefited her. It meant that she could surround herself with powerful people in an effort to stay alive. But Xavier has seen all this come to pass. This young Moira has not. And some things to take note of that hit different for me, despite saying all of this, knowing what will come to pass, what has come to pass. When Xavier says, "This is the kindest way available to us, the other path is worse," and Moira replies, "The best way is leaving the corpse of a child in her family's garden," and Xavier just says, "Yes, it is. Isn't that petrifying?" It hit, because that is how desperate the situation has become. The fact that Xavier would even consider unaliving a child, and not just any child, the child version of a woman who was once his best friend, once his lover, his partner. That is how far Xavier has fallen. But thankfully, he doesn't. And it's all thanks to, of all people, Sinister. I say Sinister because he slips up in front of Rasputin 4 while they're fighting against the Sentinels. As the Sentinels are bearing in on them, he's forced to let his appearance slip, and she catches it. And once she realizes she's working with a Sinister this whole time, the very thing I said in my previous video for Rise of the Powers of 10 number 2 happens next. Or, well, not next, but soon. But we'll get to that in a moment. Rasputin rushes to the past, realizing that if Sinister is involved, then Charles is going to end Moira. And she, alongside Ascani, stops him, because if Charles ends Moira, Krakoa does not happen. Or at least not the way that it's supposed to. And that's a chance that neither Ascani or Rasputin want to take. This is, in a roundabout way, kind of a meta commentary about the current discourse of, will Krakoa be hand-waved away as an alternate reality or undone by time travel to pave the way for the new X-Men era? And I think it's pretty obvious that it won't. at least not seemingly. Ascani mentioning the importance of it and how it must continue to happen because it was needed, and to pretend that it didn't happen or didn't matter would do a disservice to it, both narratively and from a characterization standpoint, though she's not talking about the IRL reasons, but the reasons she give are basically that, just without saying it out loud. That said, a video about why Krakoa needs to end is coming soon, so hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell so you don't miss it. That said, Charles is gonna let Moira live, but he's also going to show her, presumably, everything she's going to do up until the point of the present. He says that she won't remember, but what he's talking about is most likely that he almost unalived her, which is funny when you consider what Moira does this issue in the present. That said, I also do believe she's not going to remember everything he showed her either. I think he put something there that's going to become important later. But getting back to what Moira learns this issue, she learns in the present about Enigma, Omega Sentinel, Nimrod, all of it. Something that we could likely have deduced before this issue, and who knows, maybe I said something about it before, but Enigma was the Trickster Titan who sent Omega Sentinel back in time, the very same Trickster Titan we learned about in Jonathan Hickman's Inferno. But Enigma is cutting deals now, and we know that Omega Sentinel and Nimrod do not factor into them at all. This isn't much of a surprise either, because we know from 10 Deaths of Wolverine that Moira becomes a phalanx-infused entity outside of normal time and space in the future. She even infected the Wolverine of her 6th life, who came back and tried to unalive her in the present, hence her death and coming back as a cyborg. This is how all that occurs, but what Enigma hasn't told Omega Sentinel and Nimrod is that this is being done. To become one with the Dominion is to lose sense of self, to cease existing as you know it and become part of a greater whole. And while Omega and Nimrod are aware of this, they know they'll be a part of the Dominion, but they don't realize they'll no longer exist. They'll just be data to be consumed. But it's very telling that Omega Sentinel, who Enigma sent back in time, is being left out of the loop, even telling Moira to shush when Omega Sentinel approaches her so not to give the game away. This is a big deal, because if Enigma did actually send Omega Sentinel back in time to kickstart Orchis ahead of time in order to ensure everything goes the way he wants, but is not cluing her in on the end game, then yeah, he's just simply using her, and Moira is infinitely more useful to him for one reason or another. It's interesting too, because this is a Moira who's no longer a mutant and can't reset the timeline. It makes you wonder exactly what it is that she has to offer that Omega Sentinel doesn't, because at this particular point in time, they're effectively the same character, with the only major difference being that they're both characters who used to at one point be allies of the X-Men and are now their greatest enemies. They are both cybernetic organisms and right now are both working for the side of evil in an effort to preserve the Dominion. It's kind of funny how all this is working out, but you would imagine Omega Sentinel, especially being a character who is so intrinsically tied to the Dominion now at this point, you would thought that maybe he would want her clued in. But no, he wants Moira. So he likely knows something's going to happen that he's going to want Moira on his side. What that is yet? We don't know. But Moira having the knowledge that Xavier gave her is setting something up. Something tells me what Xavier left in her mind is locked away to be unleashed at a later date, when Xavier and Moira likely meet again in the present. He's probably going to do something very similar to her that she did to him in Powers of 10 number 6. If you go back and look at the scenes from both House of X number 2 and Powers of 10 number 6, the scene where she is allowing Xavier to read her mind, and it's at that moment where we see his eyes widen and all of a sudden the memories, as they start charging their way into his mind, the memories of 9 previous lifetimes, one of which that lasted 1,000+ years, it's safe to assume that Moira is likely going to have a very similar interaction with Xavier, with him unleashing those memories into her, and maybe Moira finally getting her act together. That said, getting back to the Rasputin 4 and Sinister of it all, Rasputin does end up unaliving Sinister by the end of this issue, realizing that there's no way she can trust him, but something else unexpected happens in this issue as well. Xavier unaliving Ascani. As she reveals they're going to resurrect Jean Grey in the White Hot Room, but before this happens, he uses the very same gun he was going to fire on Moira on Ascani, blasting her through the back and out of her chest. But I think it's clear this isn't the end for her, because we know she returns in the upcoming Captain Britain-led series teased by Marvel only days ago, where Ascani is a co-headliner. We don't know the title of the series, but it's presumed not to be one of the previously announced titles like Phoenix or NYX. But Xavier unaliving Rachel seems to be in service of something greater, and likely to do with the Phoenix itself. We know in Omega Sentinel's original timeline, the Phoenix was responsible for ending artificial intelligence across the universe, and that is one of the key reasons why Jean Grey had to be taken off the table at this precise moment in time prior to the rise of the powers of 10 fall of the House of X. Maybe Charles is thinking something along these lines, maybe using Ascani as a means to pursue the route of achieving a Phoenix Blade, something that is brought up in this issue as being the reasoning behind how nearly all artificial intelligence in the universe was wiped out. Because as it stands, ending Moira was never an option from the word go, not a real one, and the dead X-Men don't seem interested in that either. Maybe this is the way. And considering how close in narrative the two books are, both Rise of the Powers of 10 and Dead X-Men, maybe getting that weapon of the Engine Moira away from her, along with the McCran Crystal Shard, is a way forward. But at this point, it's anyone's guess. You guessed it, obligatory channel outro time. If you're not subscribed to the channel, consider doing so. Clicking that subscribe button and tapping that notification bell ensures that you get more videos just like this one, and you don't miss any of my other content that I drop throughout the week, plus my live streams every Thursday and Saturday. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you click that like button, keep it plus ultra, and sound off in the comments.